Thank you so much for staying with First Issues. We continue our conversation with Dr. Keith Jefferis, where before we went for commercial break, he was of the view that for this year's budget to be positively impactful, the level of spending relative to the level of revenue needs to be realistic. He continues his train of thought by pointing out that government needs to scrutinize what money is being spent on by looking at certain key priority areas.
You know, the budget really divides into three main areas. One is the public sector wage bill, which takes up about a third of the budget. Then there's other types of expenditure like social welfare, old age pensions, student allowances, maintenance, subventions to parastatals, and then the projects, the development budget. The government wage bill, as often been said, is too big, it's unaffordable, but you can't cut that easily. On the third area, on the projects, I think we, much as this will not be popular, we really need to reduce spending on development projects until we can do a proper appraisal of project proposals and decide which ones are the most important. Nobody in the private sector would spend millions or hundreds of millions of projects on an investment unless they'd done an investment case beforehand. Is this investment going to pay off? Government doesn't do that. So that's an incredible waste of money. So I don't think we should be adding any new projects until they've been through a proper appraisal, and that means we can prioritize them. One thing I'm particularly in favor of is that I think in the past we've had a tendency to spend too much money on new projects, what you might call new hardware, buildings, roads, what, and we don't maintain them. And you can just see the quality of our infrastructure gets degraded really, really fast. I mean, you can see that just driving around now after this rain. I mean, the potholes is awful, awful. And if those aren't fixed, that means the whole road will fall apart. We spend lots of money on street lights that don't work. We spend lots of money. We replaced all the traffic lights, all of them in Gaborone. Hundreds of millions. They were all replaced. Half of them are not working already. So we've got to maintain our infrastructure. And that's before we even get to things like school buildings, etc., or hospitals. So I think we need a huge shift away from just putting up new infrastructure towards maintaining what we have.
Well, the new budget is going to be presented by a new government that has inherited whatever good or bad from the previous government. So how much legwork do you think they need to do to be successful in achieving whatever it is that they want to achieve from the national budget?
Yeah, an awful lot. So the budget preparation process, although the budget's in February, the preparation process starts much, much earlier, around the middle of the previous year. And so that process has been continuing under the old government. It seemed to have been very delayed. So normally around September, something called the budget strategy paper is released. And that's quite a detailed, quite technical in many ways, quite an in-depth summary of where we are. It even gives an outline of what the proposed spending levels are and anticipated revenues and deficit, etc. I mean, those are not final numbers, but it's an indication of the way things are going and what sort of principles will be followed in putting the budget together. Now, that document never appeared. It actually only came out eventually under the new government in December. So it was about 3 months late. And that to me suggested that budget preparations were way behind schedule anyway. And I think that was largely because of the election. So there was a lot of catching up to do. Plus, new government came in with new ideas, new priorities, new commitments. Plus, the whole economic environment was changing. And a lot of uncertainty of what's happening in the world. What's happening with the diamond industry, what's happening in Southern Africa with growth rates and new government in South Africa, etc., etc. So there was a lot of uncertainty. So I think the new government, yeah, as I say, had a mountain to climb, just in terms of the process, getting the process back on track, time-wise, but also, as I say, making some of these tough decisions. Yeah, we've come in with all these commitments. We really want to do them. We put them in our manifesto for a reason. They weren't there just as a thumbsuck. We made these commitments, but now, maybe when those commitments were made, they didn't realize how bad the fiscal situation was, and how empty the coffers were. So there's all these commitments. There's nothing on the face of it available to pay for them. Does that mean we have to delay some of these things, treat them as a staggered commitment? It's not going to be in the first 100 days, it'll be over the lifetime of the government or whatever. Certainly there needs to be some slowing, if you like, of the implementation of these commitments. And there's no scope for making unfunded spending proposals. I think there was a lot of goodwill for the new government, but still they're new. They have to make sure they keep their credibility. And a responsible fiscal position is a key element of that credibility.